Hello and good afternoon. I am so excited to be here with Caroline Payton from Payton Principles. We have a subject today that I think many, many men are really worried about, and it affects a lot of men out there, and it is Men's Health Week. So we have invited one of our experts in the field who's going to talk about how nutrition can help people who have prostate enlargement. And there is another word for it, but I'm going to let her introduce herself because she's the expert after all. So, welcome to the show, Caroline. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thank you, Charlotte, for inviting me on again. And yes, I'm a nutritionist and a naturopath, and I specialize in gut health with a lot of my clients. But I thought this week, as it's Men's Health Week, and men seem to get overlooked a lot, don't they? There's a lot of focus around female health and female conditions. So I specifically wanted to think was Men's Health Week, and whilst I have a very female following, although I have a lot of male clients as well, I thought, no, I'm specifically going to pick a topic that I think is really important for a lot of men. And this prostate enlargement, known as BPH, which is benign prostatic hyperplasia. Hyperplasia means it's not actually dangerous, it's not cancerous, it's not like a tumor growth as such, but it does mean that the prostate becomes enlarged, and that starts to create all sorts of problems for men as they get older. When I was researching this, I found out that it affects about a third of men over 50. And it becomes a bit embarrassing. Men don't like, none of us like to talk about embarrassing things, do we? But, it does have an impact on men's life. It's all to do with urinary flow, and often means men have to get up a lot in the night. And sometimes men need to go a lot, or they find they can't go, but they feel they want to go. And it starts to create more symptoms. Not everyone's going to be affected. It's a third of men, but it's quite a large proportion
It's a
of the
huge proportion.
population, isn't it?
And that's only, because a lot of men, I would have thought, probably keep this quite secret until they have to go. So,
Yeah.
if they go to the doctors, what are the advice that they would normally get from a doctor's perspective?
I think they would run tests like PSA type tests. They'd probably be looking for prostate cancer, and then they'd probably come back and say, you don't have prostate cancer. This is fine. This is normal. You can live with it.
Mm.
They may, if things get quite severe, put them on some sort of hormonal type treatment. And I'll just briefly explain why this is all to do with hormones, and then obviously come on with other things that we can do to help. But that's in the sort of more extreme. A lot of men will probably just live with this. But you do find men getting up a lot of times in the night to go to the toilet. It does have an impact on their life, but it is to do with hormones. So as we know, with our sex hormones, with men, it's predominantly testosterone. But what can happen is you can get a more damaging testosterone called DHT, another long word or long words, DHT. Testosterone can convert to this other form of testosterone called DHT, and that's the one that makes the prostate grow and become enlarged. And when it becomes enlarged, it starts to act like a clamp and put pressure on the urethra, which is the tube with which urine flows through. So that's why it starts to create the problems.
So a little bit like, so we talk a lot about nutrition and menopause, and we've done that in other other sort of programs that we've done with you. So it's a little bit the same, isn't it? So it's obviously the hormones is affecting the life, but there is a lot you can do yourself, I understand,
Is
with nutrition,
exactly.
which is obviously where you come in. So
Yes. And
listen to
it's
this.
I'm not going to go into all the, science behind it all. But, there are a lot of links as to why when I talk about nutrition, there are things like cofactors, and cofactors influence the ability for testosterone to convert to DHT, for example, and it gets quite complicated. And estrogen also has a role. We tend to think that females have estrogen and progesterone and no testosterone, and men have testosterone and they don't have the others. Well, that's not true either. But what we do is we need to keep the balance. So we don't want estrogen to become out of control in men. Same with women as well. So when I was researching this, one of the first things that came up was around a high-fat diet. Now, I think we're all aware of not eating a very high saturated fat diet, but we do need good fats in our diet. We do need the things like the olive oils and oily fish and avocados, but we don't want to have a diet that's very, very high in saturated fat. So not too much red meat, not too much dairy. notice I emphasize that not about avoidance, it's all about moderation. So not having too much of that. Vegetables, I go on a lot about plant-based diets, again, not being vegan or vegetarian, but plant-based diets. The three key nutrients that came up, but there is an overlap here, was beta carotene, which is the vegetable version of vitamin A. Beta carotene, it converts to vitamin A in the body. Lutein, which is a plant compound, and vitamin C. And when you start to look at some of the vegetables that are really important for all of these, carrots, sweet potatoes, squashes, tomatoes, broccoli, the broccolis, the kales, the spinach, the parsley, peppers, kiwis, berries. Yeah, that's about all of them. So it's not to say you should only eat those, but it does come back to the having a high abundance of vegetables and lots of colour, because a lot of the ones I talked about there are reds and purples and oranges and yellows. So lots of, and greens, lots and lots of colour. We need to see colour. So those are really important to help to prevent this conversion to DHT, this harmful hormone. Pumpkin seeds, a lot of research around pumpkin seed oil, but just utilizing pumpkin seeds more. You can snack on pumpkin seeds. You could add pumpkin seeds to a salad and make it crispy. You can add pumpkin seeds to porridge. So there's lots of ways you could be adding more pumpkin seeds into your diet, but pumpkin seeds have been shown for years as a sort of almost like a folk medicine type approach, but a German study actually did do the research around pumpkin seeds and found that those that had a much higher intake of pumpkin seeds had much lower scores related to this BPH and the problems with the urinary flow, for example. So
Wow.
pumpkin seeds would be a good thing.
And I love pumpkin seeds. It gives a crunchy taste, doesn't it, to salads. Yeah, I love them. So they're a good sort of snack, if you like.
They're a great snack.
Yeah.
And they're also rich in zinc. And zinc, when I think of men's health generally, and again, a lot of it comes back to prostate health, but zinc, zinc is found in those with BPH to be very low. Now, most people tend to be a bit low in zinc in their diets. It's very rich in oysters. Who eats oysters? But it is found in other seafood. It is found in other meats, but it's also, and chicken legs are a good source of zinc. We tend to think, chicken legs, maybe higher fat. This is where a little bit of the fat in something like that is fine. We tend to think, we should have the chicken breast, but chicken legs are really high. So sort of browner meat, very high in zinc. Now, zinc is very important, and it helps to block the conversion of testosterone to DHT, the damaging version of the hormone. So it's found in pumpkin seeds. Hooray! So it's got multiple benefits, and tofu and lentils and sesame seeds and eggs. So, finding out sources of zinc and making sure you're getting zinc. And if you don't, maybe supplementing it. And we get depleted of zinc quite quickly if we have a very high alcohol intake. So, alcohol can deplete levels of zinc.
Oh, that's interesting. So even if you're eating a lot of the good stuff, if you're then kind of having the alcohol to go with it.
High alcohol, little bit.
Yeah. A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
When we have these chats, Karen, because
a bit of everything.
It's not about avoiding, is it? It's about enhancing and kind of adding the good stuff into your diet and having a balanced diet, like you said, which will balance the hormones, which is what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. And this is the other thing around balance. It comes back to another thing I talk a lot about, is around blood sugar balancing, making sure we eat in a way to try and keep our blood sugar levels stable. Again, there's science behind it and it's complicated, but if your blood sugar gets out of balance, there's a release of more insulin, and the more insulin that's released, it then contributes more to the conversion of this more harmful DHT. So we don't want that to happen. So trying to keep blood sugar levels stable, we need good levels of proteins, we need lots of healthy vegetables and good fiber intake, and we want to be avoiding very refined carbohydrates as much as possible, having small amounts of the starchier carbs, but making sure they're the more complex ones, whether it's oats like porridge or brown rice, for example, not eating loads of sandwiches all day long and lots of toast and making it white and lots of pizza. You know, it's the vegetables, it's the fiber, it's the protein, it's the good fats, and trying to keep the blood sugar levels stable. Most people eat too many starchy carbs, which send the blood sugar levels out of balance if we're not
And that
careful.
makes all sort of other things as well, doesn't it? Because it makes you tired, it makes you that
Absolutely.
slump in the afternoon, and yeah, those kind of
Absolutely.
things. So that benefits a
Concentration,
lot.
it can affect our sleep. So that balancing blood sugar is really the foundation to so many aspects of our health and well-being. But it has another impact here, you
So
know.
can you actually, so if you're suffering with, when you're noticing that you're starting to go to the loo and you realize that this is happening to you and your prostate has enlarged,
Yeah.
and you're thinking, right, I'm not sure what to do. People are listening into this. How long after sort of putting in this different changes to their diet and reducing alcohol and so on, may they see a change? Is it sort of
Yes, they
quick?
may, but there's no sort of guarantee, and it's taking the whole holistic approach. So often what you find is people will pick up on one aspect of this that's the easiest thing to implement, and it's making sure you cover all aspects. That's really important. Um, and of course, I can't guarantee, I can't say, yes, you do all of this, and in a month's time, everything's going to be fine. We're all unique, we're all different. I'm sure stress has an impact to play as well as a dietary approach as well. But, at the very first sign of any of this, then what you're helping to prevent is it becoming worse, because what can happen over time is the prostate becomes enlarged, 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 enlarged. But so, until it gets to the point where it really does have a more serious impact on those symptoms and day-to-day life, what we want to do is nip it in the bud as soon as possible so it doesn't get to that point.
So what other symptoms may you think feel or so, apart from starting to go to the toilet a lot more during the night and things?
Sometimes it can be difficulty going to the toilet, or
Yeah,
that feeling of wanting to go and you can't go, for example. Those are
yeah.
the main things. Yeah, they're the
Those
main.
are the main things to look out for.
Of course, Google, you can Google, you can look on the NHS website, NHS Choices website. If you looked up BPH, then it would have a lot of really useful information about the symptoms to be aware of, to look out for. And yeah, then men can be aware of, I need to take more care and attention. It's that sort of checking in with your body, isn't it? And being more aware of what's going on.
Which I think a lot of us, sometimes it gets to the point when something happens, and like this, and as a man, you don't really know what to do. So that's why I wanted to do the show and kind of talk about that. There are things that you can put into place which may help. And like you said, everyone is different. So, but it may just kind of help you a little bit to get to terms with what's going on, and then tune into your body and actually see what else you can do, what else you can maybe change in your nutrition. So
Yeah.
Caroline, for those of you who've been watching and they think, right, I really, really would like some more advice, where can they find out more about you? Obviously on cenabounds.co.uk, but where else can they find? And I know that you've got a Facebook group and things. So tell us a little bit, where people can find you.
So my website's Patent Principles, which is Principles. The Principles of Good Health. Patent Principles is my website. My YouTube channel is Patent Principles Natural Health. So I've got over 100 videos on my YouTube channel now. My Facebook group it does include men, but it's called Inspired Lifestyle Choices for Women Over 35. But I do have men in my group. I called it that because I tend to attract more women on Facebook, but what I talk about is very relevant for men as well as women, unless it's menopause, of course. But tonight, I'm going to talk about this topic in my group because, it's Men's Health Week, and so I'm going to talk about this in my group. But that's what my group is called. But there's lots of information. My YouTube channel, my website is full of blogs, articles, podcasts. A huge amount of information is on there.
I'm really grateful for you to share the information, Caroline. As you know, we like to talk about all these kind of things that affect people in day-to-day life and how you can help as a nutritionist and naturopath. So I'm really, really thankful that you joined me today. And if you want to know more, then pop over to Caroline's Facebook group or the YouTube channel, and there'll be some links in the chat as well. If you are watching on replay and you have a question, just put #replay and your question, and I'm sure that Caroline will be more than happy to answer anything that comes up. So thank you so much, Caroline, and thank you to everyone watching. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hello and welcome to Live at 5. We have a very special show all about PR.
And more specifically, what is PR? And you hear this term thrown around, people go, got to do some PR, got to do some PR, got to do PR. But actually, if you do it right, it can be an incredible, profitable activity to do. So we decided to bring in an amazing guest show, Fiona Scott. And this is exactly her bread and butter. Fiona, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's so much to
so
have
lovely
you.
to have you here.
It's lovely to be invited.
Well, we've come to you effectively because we've
I
come all
know.
the way to Swindon.
I know,
Yeah.
and isn't Swindon a great place?
It's gorgeous.
Absolutely.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just like the people. It's absolutely gorgeous. So let's talk about PR. Okay, so first off, let's give us a brief. What is it? What is PR?
Okay. PR is not, first of all, press activity or publicity activity. It is public relations. So in my world, actually it encompasses the whole of marketing. It is your relationship with all of your publics within your business, your charity, whatever it is that you do, it's how you touch the public. So in my world, a PR professional might have a specialism in a certain area, but they will be looking at all that you do to be visible and should be able to give you advice about all different things that you can do, even if they specialise in one thing. And actually, I'd be very suspicious of any PR professional who says they can cover all of it, because that's like saying, I cover the whole of marketing.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that. It's only 24 hours in a day.
So what do you specialise in, as in Scott Media?
I specialise in publicity, relationships with the press, or press relations, which people often think that's what PR means. It doesn't. But that can only be part of your PR strategy. You're going to have to do other stuff. And also, working with someone like me, it's not an insignificant investment. And if you're working with a bigger company, it's far more significant. So actually, there are probably going to be other things you need to do first before you come to someone like me. So get some training, particularly if you're in startup mode or thinking of starting a business. Get some training around what public relations actually means and what elements you are going to need to consider, because you're going to have to do something. Because I don't know about you two, but I don't know many successful invisible businesses.
No, and honestly, that's such a top tip, and it sounds so simple, but so many people come to us and they think they need a website. Then they haven't thought about anything else. And so who's going to visit you? Who's going to, where you're going to get the word out there?
And I think to really put it in perspective, and you use that analogy, people think if I build a website, they will come. It's not the arc, right? You've got to tell people about it. You've got to make sure that people entrust in you. So really, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong about this, but a lot of PR is about the individual rather than the business.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That saying, build it and they will come, just drives me nuts when I hear that. No, build it and they will come eventually after you've told them about it again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and you keep going.
Yeah.
That's dealt with that little phrase. What was the other question, Jamie? Lost my thread then.
No, that is more about the person than it is about the business.
Okay. When you we buy a product or a service, we tend to buy emotionally and justify it intellectually. Slightly different if you're a bigger business, and you've got like a board of directors, then there will be a number of you all influencing a buying decision. But at the end of the day, people buy from people. So you have to be a person or a personality in your business in all of your PR.
Yeah, and do you know, it's funny when you say that, right? So you look at some of the biggest brands in the world, right? Virgin, Richard Branson, right? Monsoon Fashions, Peter Simon. You know, you've got major brands, and they've always got a foreperson. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm a big brand, I don't need to be in front of it, or even I'm a small brand and no one wants to know about me. It's more important, I think, probably if you're a smaller brand, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely more important. You can, when you're a product-based business, get to a stage where the brand itself starts to almost have a personality of its own, and it goes that way. And then the business owner or founder either leaves or exits or decides to build their own personal brand, and then the two can move together. So you might take something like Heinz Baked Beans, where you might look at their brand straight away, even a tiny bit of it, and you know straight away what that brand is. And, you know, I don't know who the boss of, the brand that runs Heinz Baked Beans is. You can get to that stage, but you're talking multi-million-pound turnover companies.
Yeah.
And almost all of them, and I predict it will be more in the future, will focus on human interaction. And one of the reasons is we are so engaged as human beings now compared to when I was growing up. I'm in my 50s now. You know, we are engaged, we are connected at a global level. So the phrase people buy from people, I predict will become more important and not less important as time goes by.
And also, I think that this is where PR really comes in important, right? Because there's an old saying, I'm going to say to you, you've probably heard it before, I love your opinion on it, that you can build a reputation, it takes 40 years to build a reputation, it takes 40 seconds to destroy it. And I think a really good example of that is Wetherspoons during lockdown. You know, it built its reputation, and yeah, its reputation survived it, but it nearly didn't. You know, one decision, one comment, and bang, end of that reputation. So it's really important to make sure that you're putting out a positive message, but also I think it's also really important that you manage a negative message.
Yeah, we call it in comms, we call it crisis management. Now with that, you have a very strong founder who has a strong personality and strong opinions. So people like that tend to get very visible very quickly, depending on their opinions. But the danger with that is when you've got those opinions and you're not reading the public mood, we call it reading the room, it can go spectacularly wrong.
Yeah, Piers Morgan, I think, is the prime example.
Yeah, it can go spectacularly wrong. And then you have to manage it because you've dumped yourself and your brand in it.
Yeah.
And there were various examples of that throughout lockdown when, you know, the mood music that you put out into the ether didn't work. We've seen it recently with the government and all the hoo-ha around that. Exactly, not reading the room, doing something you think everybody will like, and it going spectacularly wrong. You can't always predict that.
I think this is something that you can help with as well.
Yeah, the fact that you've used government in that, I think actually is a really good example, because I will say this about the government, right? Sometimes you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, okay? But it's a really good example of where you are literally all eyes on you.
Yeah.
And if you get it right, you'll be adored. If you get it wrong, you'll be ignored. And if you can even be at 0 to 0 in seconds.
I think one brilliant example of that was during the Queen's passing. David Beckham joined the queue.
Yeah.
And queued for hours.
Yeah.
Now, you know, with a cynical hat on, you might think he deliberately did that, and it would be, I've never met the guy, and it would be great PR. But regardless whether he did that as a heartfelt thing or he was advised to do that, that was fantastic for his profile. And then there were others that didn't.
Yeah.
And that went south really quickly into actually a very malicious place. And that's what you have to remember with reputation, brand, PR, public relations. You know, not all public relations are predictable. You can only do your best, you can do the next right thing, and that is it.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that you can help with this, and you've helped us as a startup a couple of years ago with power hours and things like that.
Ago.
No, but it's amazing because you don't just cover the basics that we talk about now and how you can but you also cover the things that you perhaps need to think about before you go out and be public of what you want to talk about and what you don't want to talk about. So we haven't got much time left, but if people are watching and they really want to get in touch with you and understand more about what PR is, what not to do and what to do and how to get your name out there, how can they find you?
Well, I've deliberately set my business up so that I can meet people where they are. in the business. So I do a 15-minute free discovery call because that's how long it takes me to work out where you are. I do power hours where 60 minutes one-to-one, often virtual, and we will just literally, I will throw everything at you where you are in your business. Or you can book a lot of power hours with me if you want, that's fine. Or you can come on one of my training days, or you can do a retained service with me. But for that, you need to be prepared to spend at least £500-600 a month to work with someone like me, because, you know, I'm not SME PR Advisor of the Year 2022 for nothing. I really do know what I'm talking about, and when I say jump, I need you to say how high and here's the money.
Fantastic. But I also think that you've brought up something quite prudent there, and I'm going to just comment on that before we finish, but there's no point coming to you and paying the money if you're not willing to do the effort behind it, or if you haven't got the time, or you haven't got that kind of inclination. It has to be a part of your sort of structure and your strategy. So I think that's really important. I could talk all day. Fiona, thank you so much for coming on the show. We absolutely love having you here. We love talking about the subject. It is a subject that we're quite involved with as well. We're quite engrossed with. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some insight. It's been
no problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is all we've got time for. I know I'm as disappointed as you are, but we will see you right back here very soon. For now, take care. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.